I'm Goggins. What makes me is the dungeon. And yeah, and people are, well, oh my God, like they're gonna hear this, my God, you don't have any peace in your life. Don't get it fucking twisted. Weak people who hear me get all fucking poopy pants about how I talk. So be it. What changed me was I had to be hard on myself.
Yep.
And I have to continue to grind myself into a fine dust, period. That's where I feel good. I feel like I accomplished something. If things come easy, it's not fun. I must fail at something repeatedly. It has to haunt me. And then once I complete it, I feel like I accomplished something. I don't want to set out and say, oh, there's an A, we're good. It's fucking stupid. No, I want to turn it in a million times and say you failed. You failed. And I'll say, okay, roger that. And sit there and analyze what I'm doing wrong. Go to these places that people don't go to anymore because all this fucking social media shit and everything's computerized. I want to go to that dark place in my mind and say, okay, how are we going to get this done?
I think the right people are happy when they're challenged by something. Like when they're pursuing something, when they're challenged, like when they're not where they could be.
Right.
When they're not who they could be.
Right.
And you and I were talking about this off camera. It's like, I just want everybody to understand this. This is from two people who are sort of in this space. We love helping people. We love making a difference. But what makes us make a difference is the pursuit of who we've been becoming, these challenges, you and all the different ways you have, and me and my way, and millions of people in their way too. Like, I don't want people to think, I just want to get to a place and cool it. Because you get to that place and cool it, I think you're going to be miserable. You've got to still find somewhere. And I want to kind of go in your head a little bit because I've not lived this and very few people have lived this. I want to take you back there for a minute, and then at the end I'm going to ask you what that thing looks like next for you. This whole thing that you did, you get out, where I can't cover the whole military thing because I want them to read the book, right? But then you're like, hey, you really never done any of this before, but this is sort of the formula of what we're talking about. Then the military thing ends, and then you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go like run, I'm gonna do the Badwater 135.
My cardio was 20 minutes every Sunday on the elliptical trainer.
Okay.
That was it.
That is it.
So I'm looking at all these different races, and one comes up, number one, the hardest race in the world, Badwater 135. 135-mile race through Death Valley. I'm like, that sounds fucking nuts. But it didn't describe that it was like a couple day race. I'm thinking, okay, that has to be like a fucking 7-day race. Because I don't know people who run like that. So I end up calling Chris Kosman up. Chris Kosman is the race director of Badwater. And he lives out here in California. He's like, hey man. I'm like, hey Chris, I call him up in the first conversation. I actually have all the emails in my book from me, him going back. He's a fucking stickler, man, I'll tell you that. So I call him up and say, hey man, I'm gonna do this race. He's like, have you ever run 100 miles before? I'm like, no. He goes, well, to get my race, you have to do a 100-mile race. And you gotta do 100 miles in 24 hours or less. There was only 2 more races I could do before the deadline dropped. And so I'm like, he goes, you live in San Diego, right? I'm like, yeah. This was Wednesday. I call him up on a Wednesday morning. He goes, well, there's a race on Saturday. And it's called the San Diego One Day at Hospitality Point in San Diego, where you run around a 1-mile track for 24 hours, and so many miles you can get. So I'm like, fuck it, man, this guy's trying to call me out. I'm gonna get this shit done. I'm a SEAL, I'm a badass, been through Ranger School and shit. I got this. Hardest thing I did in my entire life, dude, was this one race. So I go.
Harder than getting through?
Hell yeah.
Wow.
I was not prepared at all. So I go, I sign up for the race, I show up, I'm this big bodybuilder looking guy, shirt off, black hat on, you know, and I set out. So every mile, I'm gonna see this blue lawn chair. I had Ritz crackers and Mileplex. That was my fucking nutrition, man. No water, no nothing, just Mileplex.
No water?
No. Ritz crackers and Mileplex, dude.
Come on.
I fucking, you know, I never drink water on runs and shit. I fucking didn't know about all this shit. So I go out there and I'm running. I get through 50 miles. I'm gonna cut to the chase because I detail it really well in the book. I get going. I sit down at mile 70. And buddy, I hadn't sat down yet. I sit down and everything falls the fuck apart. Literally, man, I'm like peeing blood down my leg. I have some crap coming out of me, and I got 30 fucking miles to go. And I'm in the worst shape of my entire life. And so I won't get too deep into it, man, but I end up going back through my cookie jar, and I talk about, you know, my cookie jar is basically something I invented about. We forget how badass we are when we're suffering, because our mind just stays right there in suffering. The cookie jar is a reminder. You know how your mom used to have the cookie jar, you don't know what kind of cookie you're gonna get, but it may be oatmeal raisin, maybe chocolate chip meat, because she's dumps them in that motherfucker. You just grab one and go. Yeah. So my cookie jars, the things I've accomplished, failed at, didn't fail at, just kept on grinding through. So I take this 1 second, I calm down, so I realize, okay, man, I gotta be able to just stand up first, come all dizzy and lightheaded, and I go through this process. And I said, I might quit, but not yet. I go, this is the worst shit in my life. So I said I might quit, because when you're not gonna quit something, you got 30 miles to go, your mind's spazzing. Like, I'm fucked up. Like 30 miles is a long way to go, just fresh. I've already gone 70, I'm the worst shit in my life. I'm like, okay, so I'm giving my mind some space. Because if you don't give it space, it's just gonna freak out. Okay. So I'm saying, you know what, I'm gonna quit, but let me just sit here for a second and drink some water. Now I'm drinking water. I have my crew going over to get some fucking, nutrition, some food for me. I'm getting better. So now I stand up, like, wow, I'm able to stand up now, because I wasn't able to. I was all lightheaded. And I'm going on this track, and I get to mile 81, and I wasn't going to make the time. I was moving slow.
You're behind time.
Way behind. And this is the craziest thing in the world. And I fucking shit you not. I'm in the worst shape of my entire life, ever. I've never even been close to this. Again, never. Mile 81, I'm not going to make the time as slow as I was moving. And when your body and mind connect, and I think this is the only time I've ever done this, you become a cyborg. I end up running 20 miles at about a 10, 15 mile and get done with that race. I did 101 miles in 19 hours and 6 minutes. And to this day, and I don't detail it well with you, but in the book I do, I learned more from that 19 hours and 6 minutes than I did in all 3 Hell Weeks, Ranger School, and this is months. Ranger School is 60 something days. Hell Week and all the buds is 6 months. I was in buds for like 18 months. I went through Delta Force selection twice, pull up records. I learned more in that one race that I wasn't prepared for. That 19 hours brought me from utter misery, happiness, failure, success, depression. I went through every fucking emotion in the world in 19 hours. And you should hear how the race ended. Then I really took a shit on myself. Like, I got in that blue chair when the race ended, and I literally, it just was over. I was in the worst shape of my life. I got in the tub, and they put the shower, or she put the shower on me. The showers hit me as I'm laying in the tub in the fetal position. And what came out of me looked like dirt as I'm peeing. It's not even blood. This is dark brown dirt. And I'm sitting there, and she calls my mom, and my mom has a doctor friend over her house. And this guy's one of the best doctors in the country. And he's like, you need to get him to the doctor now. So what I'm about to tell you is gonna fuck you up. So I'm sitting there, and I think I'm gonna die. And worst shape of my life. And I'm in this tub, and I'm jackhammering, and I have this hot water hitting me, and I'm literally in the worst pain. My shins, my feet, I'm broken. And I'm just sitting, I'm cramping up. And she said, we gotta get you to the doctor. Your mom's worried, I'm worried about, we've never seen this before in my life. And I go, I'm not going anywhere. I wanna sit here and enjoy this pain. And I know the listeners hearing this are gonna say, man, you're a fucking nut. No, I'm not. What I got a chance to experience in that 19 hours and 6 minutes of my life was something I didn't want any painkillers. This was proof positive. What I was feeling is what I just did. I did something without training, without coaching, without a cheering staff, without any knowledge. I took a raw human being with no training whatsoever, put him out in a condition, and just through this alone, got through it. And I sat there and I was like, it was the best feeling I've ever had and will ever have in my entire, I was in the worst pain in my life, and it was the best feeling I ever had in my life. Not because of the pain I was in, but the pain was confirmation of, my God, did I just do that? Wow. And I had completed hell weeks. But that right there was like, don't take this from me.
Man.
And it was confirmation, proof positive that this young kid that came from shit, that wasn't shit, that lied and cheated I was now the truth.
God.
I was now the truth. I was a Navy SEAL. I went through Army Ranger School as honor man. I went through all this shit. I was truth. I became truth. There was no more lie. And what's funny about all that
Man, David.
is the people in my life who were in my life when I was bad, and I call it bad, wasn't bad. I had a fucked up way to go, man. They're still out there, and they know what the fuck I'm saying. I ain't gonna drop names on them. They wanna take me back there. They're mad that I'm here.
Yes.
They wanna still make me out to be what I was.
Right, right.
They don't like the fact that they're still where the fuck they're at.
That's right.
They hate that. So on this journey in life, there's a lot of people who are fucked up right now. On the journey, there's always be that motherfucker in the sewer you came from that's grabbing at your fucking ankle as you're leaving that sewer. That's when it drags you right the fuck back down because you figured it out. They're not willing to figure it out. There's not much to figure out. The only thing to figure out is this. And everybody has a different equation. My equation is different than yours. My equation was very different than most people's. It's not about being sadistic. It was just about that right there was kind of like the moment of my life where I realized, I don't like to say that I've arrived because you never want to have that I've arrived mentality because you stop. But that was the moment that I realized that I was the truth.
Man. I've done a lot of shows, but I don't go back and watch them that much. You know, I'll watch them a couple times when we do them. I'll go back and watch and listen to this last 10 or 15 minutes of We Talked About several hundred times. That's the most incredible thing I've heard. I'll just tell you straight up. That's the most incredible, beautiful, magnificent thing I've heard since I've been doing the show. Thank you for that.
I appreciate that.